What's going on, Drinking Buddies? Brand new podcast coming right at you, but you know what we got to do first. We got to talk about a couple things that generate a little revenue for the show. First and foremost, we are brought to you by the Patreon at patreon.com/MattSlayer. Get the video versions early, get the exclusive content, get all the things that you want. And, help support the show. Sick of hearing ads? Ad-free audio. You can support the show for less than the cost of a beer or a nitro cold brew. So do that today at www.patreon.com/MattSlayer. We are also brought to you by the merch store at ANWD.net/merch. Get an art print, get a t-shirt, buy some merch, suggest some merch. ANWD.net/merch. And last, but certainly not least, the easiest way to support this show is twofold. Share posts, tell friends, just spread the word. The other is go to youtube.com/andnowwedrink and subscribe. Feed the algorithm. It's really that easy. Both cost you nothing. Only take a couple seconds. And I appreciate the hell out of you for it. Let's get on with the show. My guest this week is the man known as Porn Law. Attorney Michael Fattorosi makes his triumphant return to the show. This was actually done as a live stream on Monday, March 13th, so if you caught it live on YouTube, sorry about the audio issues. Actually, sorry about the audio issues to everybody because of some unforeseen circumstances. The audio comes in about 20 minutes into the show. So, unfortunately, we're starting this as an episode in progress due to me fucking up a little bit. These things happen. Day drinking and waking up early. Not a good mix. Without further ado, sit back, relax, pop a cold one, and enjoy Drinking Buddies.
When aliens come to take over, they look at us like we're out of our minds now. We're gonna galactic makeover. And now we're thinking that they just might be right. I cannot wait for this whole world to end. I'm gonna break out the bottle with my friends. I think they'll tell the best stories when we're gone. And now we drink.
So here's what always comes up in my practice, okay? I get so many of these questions from content creators. The model releases. And what ends up happening with people is that what I've seen is that they'll take a model release that's really meant for a paid shoot, meaning that you show up on set, the producer, director, studio says, we're going to pay you $1,000, we're going to pay you $1,500, $2,000, whatever your rate is. You're going to do the scene, you're going to sign the model release, and we're going to own all of the content forever and not pay you anything else. That's what I refer to as a paid-for model release. It's your standard porn movie release. And what they'll do is they'll take that paid model release and try to change some of the language or add some stuff in to make it a content share release or a content trade release. And those are all three very different legal situations. You can't use a paid model release for a content share or for a content trade because the rights are different. So when you pay somebody, the language in the model release will basically say, I'm paying you, and for the payment that I'm paying you, I get all the rights to the content to do whatever I want from here until infinity, to repurpose it, to republish it, to do whatever I want forever and always. And that's not what a lot of people want to do with content shares or content trades. I do have a packet of forms that I sell on my website for $125 where I have model releases, model content trades, and content shares. But even those are different than what I think a lot of the content creators want nowadays. The ones that I have basically say, okay, we're going to do a trade. And here's the definition of a trade. So a trade is I do a scene for you, and you do a completely different scene for me. So I may perform in, let's say, a POV blowjob for you because you're the male talent. And in reverse, I want a pegging scene. So I'm going to peg you. So we have two completely different scenes, and we just trade our services. And so basically that model release is going to be different because it's going to give rights in one scene to one person and rights to the other scene to the other person. So that way people have different rights and they can use their scenes for whatever they want, but they don't own the other person's scene at all. And then you have the content shares. And the content shares are where you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people who are coming together to co-produce, co-direct a scene. They're doing, and this is where it gets confusing because I've had this situation come up with models, and so there's 6 models, 7 models doing a content share, but they're all in different scenes. Well, that's not exactly a content share that you can use one model release for. You need one model release for the models that are in that scene, one model release for the models that are in that scene, and one model release for the other one. Now, of course, if everybody's in the same scene, then you can use one model release to cover it all. But if you have, let's say, one of these, trade weekends or share weekends where they all get together and they all shoot different scenes, then you need to be using separate model releases for each particular scene. And that's not something I think models realize. They think like, oh, I can just do one release, or I can do a paid release. You can't. And if you use the wrong model releases, then those could easily be challenged, and you can lose all your rights to those scenes. And you're not protecting them because you're not using the right documentation.
What constitutes a different scene? Like, how much of a break in the action?
That's an interesting question. Usually what I tell clients is that, if you're talking about a paid release, if you're talking about a release where I'm hiring a performer to come perform on my set, okay? And depending on what the scene calls for, if the producer calls up and says, okay, I need, the scene's going to involve a BJ, a hand job, and then, Mish and boy girl, and it's going to be one guy and all of that. It's a normal scene. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, if it changes where the director producer is asking the female talent or male talent or trans talent to change outfits, like, oh, I need you to put on a different outfit or a different, lingerie or a different whatever, that's probably going to be a separate scene. If they change male talent on you, or if they change the other talent on you, that's probably going to be a different scene. So you have to be careful and protect yourself. But I don't really hear about that happening too much. And most of the people in the industry, they can sniff that out. That's not a problem. That's not an issue that I see happen very often. The issues that I see come up all the time is where there is not open and honest communications when it comes to content shares. Content shares are the most problematic of all of the different situations. Paid shoots, easy. Show up, get your check, do the scene, go home, get cash, whatever. The content trades are pretty clear because you got one scene for one person, one scene for the other person, pretty clear. It's when you have that group of models that are all coming together and they're renting a house or they're hiring a photographer and a videographer, and they all want to do content with each other, but they don't know who they're going to do content with. And what they don't really do is prior to the production days, they don't talk about how this content is going to be shared, who's going to get what, who's going to pay what. They'll usually discuss like, oh, well, the house is, $1,000 for the weekend on Airbnb, so we all chip in. That's easy. Well, but who's getting the content?
Question. Without a work for hire contract, wouldn't the videographer, photographer technically own the copyright to the content?
We'll get to that. Yes.
Sorry about jumping ahead on the legal questions. My bad.
No, it's good question. Good question.
Well, because no one in chat's
So, but
asking shit.
the- and so what ends up, I do these consults, and it ends up being the same way. I do I have a breaking into the industry A to Z consult where I do 2 hours and 2 hours, 4 hours total, and I'll go through everything and I'll ask the people, like, do you have any questions? No, I don't have any questions. None whatsoever. No, I don't. So it's not unusual. So what ends up happening is they don't discuss the share. Like, okay, what sites are you going to use your content on? What sites can I use the content on? Are there any sites that I shouldn't use the content on? Is it only content that I can charge for, or can I give this content away? Or can I sell the content? If I turn around and I'm a performer and I look at the scene and I go, I don't really like it. I don't really want to put it on my site, but I've got somebody willing to pay me $500 for it. Can I sell it and let them have it? These are all things that need to be discussed before performers get together and do these content share weekends, or even if it's just two performers. They really need to have these discussions about, like, are you okay with me giving this away on Pornhub or giving this away on X videos? I don't want to, I want to use this for advertising. I don't necessarily need to sell it. Are you okay with me selling this? Are you okay with me selling this on OnlyFans? These are all questions that performers need to have when they are co-producing the content. And I do think a certain amount of them do have those conversations. But the question then becomes is, how are they memorializing those conversations? How are they making sure that what they say gets into the contract? And that's where the problem lies, is that, you can't use the wrong model release, a paid for model release, and then just jot some stuff down by hand while you're on set and expect that model release to hold water with a court if it's ever challenged. And so what I try to tell performers to do is that you have all of these discussions beforehand, and then you either talk to a lawyer and get a lawyer to draft a content share agreement where everybody's rights are spelled out. I can use it. I can use it on Twitter. I can use it on OnlyFans, but I can't use it on Pornhub. I can't use it on X videos. All of those things need to be spelled out and put into the document and put into the model release before you even shoot a single frame. Because that's what ends up happening, is that people get really pissed off after the scene because now they're selling it on their OnlyFans, or they're selling it on their website, or they're selling it on Close for Sale, and somebody else from the content share is giving it away on Pornhub for free. And now, while that may not necessarily affect your sales if you're selling it, but it is something that needs to be openly discussed and communicated with everyone who's doing the content trade or content share. Sorry. And now I drink.
Cheers to that. Now, the question is, what happens if it is spelled out properly, but the party who is actually shooting it doesn't get it to all parties involved in a timely fashion?
Well, that's another issue that happens all the time.
I'm well aware.
What I tell creators is that's another conversation to have at the time before you start shooting, and that you should probably bring a hard drive with you and walk away with raw footage. You should never, ever, as a content creator, rely on someone else to do your editing. Because if you're relying on somebody else to do your editing, that's part of the content trade, you may never get your content. So if you walk on the set with a hard drive and you take a copy of the releases, you take a copy of the 2257, you take a copy of the IDs, and you say to who's ever in charge of the cameras to say, hey, you know what, download everything for me so I can have a copy of everything, then you never have to worry about chasing somebody for your content.
Now, another question on the 2257 front, because you have to have a public custody of state where your records are held, right?
Yep.
Does everyone have to have a separate storage of records for that scene, even though it is potentially the same scene?
Yeah. Yeah, if you put it up on your site, you have to keep copies of those records. Yeah, it's no different than if I shot a scene and I licensed it to 50 companies with 50 tube sites. Everybody needs to have a copy of those records.
Except the tube sites and
So all the
OnlyFans
records
regularly don't have proper 2257s uploaded.
Well, they don't now. I mean, and that's why a lot of their videos have been taken down and offline. But the legal tube sites, the proper tube sites, do have those. Or what they do is they make the primary producer be the record holder.
Okay. I mean, all I know is when I upload even video versions of this, even though there's nothing pornographic happening, I do upload some episodes to the hub. I am allowed to freely tag performers that appear in this without providing any 2257 documentation.
That is such a violation of the law. It's ridiculous.
Well, Pornhub, that's how Pornhub operates currently. If they have a verified model, they are not looking for... Now, the question is it a violation of the law on my end, even though nothing pornographic's happening in the video?
Well, if there's nothing happening pornographic in the video, then you don't even need 2257.
Right, but Pornhub doesn't know that when I upload it.
Yeah, Pornhub should be asking for it.
Right, they're not.
Yeah. Well, listen, the strictest way that you look at 2257 is secondary producers need a copy of the records no different than they were primary producers. Okay? And that's what got 16 million videos taken down off of Pornhub. Is that they just let people upload shit without even checking IDs or doing anything. And this whole tagger performer, that's also not that doesn't even meet the bare minimums of the law.
Oh, actually, let me make a correction. They do have me check a box that says I have the paperwork.
Okay. So technically, under the law, and I don't know their TOS, okay, there's two ways that they can handle this. In their terms of service, they could say that by signing up for this, you were acting as the third-party record keeper for them on your own scene. Now, that would be great if they also forced you to put in an address on your account where those videos are held, or where those IDs are held for every video.
True. So I just got.
Now, I haven't checked it.
We have a chatter, by the way, and
oh, we do.
So something was just brought to my attention, which is fucking phenomenal. Okay. The audience has not been able to hear you this whole fucking time until just now.
Really? Why?
Stupidity on my end.
I
fixed it. I mean, I instantly fixed it. But unfortunately,
okay,
a whole lot of that just fucking went out the goddamn window. So that was the 30-minute trial run of this podcast. Good thing you don't have anywhere to be today.
Well, that's fine. Well, that's fine. Well, there's a reason why we call it And Now We Drink.
Yeah, I'm a professional at this. Sherman Mouse says, hey, by the way, Michael.
Hey, how are you, sir?
Well, that's fucking phenomenal. Well, cool. At least in the rebroadcast, I was recording it locally, so that's there, but... Awesome. So, I guess we will run it the fuck back and get right back into the beginning of...
Okay.
Well, you want people to hear this, right?
Well, but I mean, what? Yeah, but they can also watch it on rebroadcast, can't they?
Well, the audio won't be there until I go and do post work on it.
So even on the recording, it won't be there?
Correct.
You're killing me. You're killing me.
Hey, I'm just happy someone fucking said it in chat, because I wouldn't have caught it until, like, I went to do fucking the post version of this and went, huh.
Okay. All right.
So just kidding, everyone. Welcome to And Now We Drink. Michael and I have not been drinking for 40 minutes already. How's everyone doing today?
And so, all right. I'm not going to do the Vesuvius stuff. I'm just going to talk about model releases. So with model releases, the most important thing that you have to remember is that you have the correct model release. If you're doing a paid shoot, you want a paid model release. If you're doing a content share, you You want a content share release. If you're doing a trade, you want a content trade. You don't want to try to like figure out how to make a paid release into a shared release or into a trade release. It doesn't work. There's different rights, there's different languages, there's different ways it has to be written. So like I said before, there's, I don't know who else has them. I don't know where else you can find them. I know that I sell a packet of them, all three of those, for $125 on my website, adultbizlaw.com. And those releases are like form releases that you can use. Now, they have their limitations, because here's the thing. Content paid is easy because, people show up, you pay them a certain amount, they sign the release, you get all the rights to the video, they get their money. It's easy, it's done. Content trade is easy because it's sort of like, the person shows up and one person does one scene and the other person, they trade scenes. So like I said, as the example was, like if I wanted a POV blowjob scene, and it was a male and female performer, she would do the POV blowjob scene for me, and then she wants a pegging scene, so I let her peg me for her trade scene. So
That's
I sign a
you,
release for her. She gets the pegging scene, and then I get the POV blowjob scene. So, and that's the trade, and you need a trade release for that because you don't want to give rights to her to have the POV scene. You don't want to give rights to him to have the pegging scene.
Question.
So you want to separate those two things.
In your professional opinion, is that the modern equivalent of a reach around?
I do not know. Is it? I'm just a lawyer. You're a content creator. You tell me.
I don't make that kind of content. Well, I mean, I film that kind of content, but I don't participate in that kind of content. You are the porn law.
Yeah, but I don't know about reach arounds.
Well, that's sad, Michael. You don't know about reach arounds as the law?
So
false advertising.
And then there is content shares, which is the most confusing part of all of this. And you absolutely cannot use a content paid model release for a content share. And what's most important about a content share, and what I see a lot of times, is the performers don't discuss what's going to actually be shared and what's not going to be shared, and how's it going to work? Who's going to pay for the house? Who's going to pay for the videographer? Who's going to pay for the photographer? And then who's going to share in the content? Is everything going to be shared in, or is it only going to be the scenes that they perform in? So, I mean, if I'm a performer and there's three other performers, and there's four of us splitting $1,000 house, and I'm paying $250. Should I not get a copy of all the content? And I'm also sharing the cost of the videographer and things. So should I not get a copy of everything? Probably should. But that's all stuff that needs to be discussed prior to the shoot day.
Now, the question is, would you recommend bringing your own videographer instead of just hiring one?
That's possible as well. That happened. When I was with Vanessa a long time ago, Vanessa Blue, I was married to her for 13 years. She did a scene with what is her name? I'm lost. God, I'm getting old. It's either I'm getting old or I'm getting drunk. Sarah J. Both. She did a scene with Sarah J. And it was like a BDS scene. So I was actually Vanessa's videographer, and Sarah J brought her own videographer. And so, and Sarah J, I think Vanessa put it out on her website and Sarah J put it out on a DVD. And so it was shot from two different angles. So it was almost two completely different scenes.
Were there two separate releases for that almost completely new scenes? Should there have been?
There didn't need to be two separate releases or two separate 2257 documents. That wasn't necessary. But she kept her content and Vanessa kept her content.
But why is it not necessary? Aren't they technically two different scenes? If you're saying it's a different scene, if there's a wardrobe
they're not
change,
two different scenes. No, it's just a different angle. So,
but what differentiates that in the eyes of the law?
It's not so much the law that worries about that. It's so much about how performers feel about being taken advantage of. So they were performing one scene and it's just being captured from two different angles. It'd be no different if you shot a scene with. Do you ever do POV scenes?
Nope. My dick has stayed off the internet this whole time.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you manage that?
By saying no a lot.
Wow.
Including when they tried to...
You're a good man.
Including when Josh tried to bribe me $2,000 to fuck China at Exotica 13.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have taken that either. But
I did not. It was a very awkward moment. I've talked about it on air, but it was a very awkward moment because we were at an after party. And China had definitely taken a shine to me at this point. She like made a hard right from the pool to come sit on my lap. And then Josh, for the audience, director Joshua, formerly for Adam and Eve, buddy of mine, but that's how Michael and I think, really met, was through Josh.
Yeah. Dude, I was at that. I was at the pool when she was in the pool naked. I forgot who she was with. But I was at that show. I was at Exotic in Miami, and she was in the pool naked. I remember that.
Yeah. So, but she comes and sits on my lap, and then Josh, Alexis Texas, and a bunch of other people start like, "Oh, hey, pay you $2,000." I'm like, and then it's like, "Oh, and we're filming." I'm like, "No, I'm like, if there were no witnesses, I might have done it for the $2,000." But
well, I know you've appeared in porn in non-sex roles.
That is correct. I have nominations for it. I'm an actor.
I know. I remember that. You played a rabbi.
Well, I've played various people's fathers, and
that rabbi on the stage at AVN is one of my favorite moments of all AVN award shows.
And that is partially your fault. Because during the 2017 appearance on the show, you talked me into being like, "Oh, you should definitely dress as a rabbi to walk the carpet."
I know. I remember that.
So the only reason I was in that costume was because
I thought that was the greatest thing ever to watch you walk up on stage as a rabbi. That was awesome. That was awesome.
I just wish I had something better to say once I made it to the stage. I was I was not expecting to have to give a fucking speech there. I was going to just stand at the back of the stage with everyone else, and then there was no one else.
So, okay, back to model releases. So, trade or share, they're different. Share, you got to have all these conversations beforehand. Who's paying for what? And where it really breaks down sometimes, and you're right about having different photographers or different videographers, that's always a good idea. But where it also breaks down is what people get to do with the content. Meaning that, I've had a lot of people call me over the years about like, well, it's not fair because she put it up on Pornhub for free and I'm trying to sell it on my site and now I can't sell it because it's for free on Pornhub. Situations like that. And that's a conversation that needs to happen with the performers together prior to any shooting happening. And what they need to do is memorialize that into the model release and not just kind of write it down, because it gets very complicated. Because it's not just a matter of saying, well, you can't show it on Pornhub. Well, what does that mean really? Can I put it on the Pornhub Premium, or is it not possible to put it on Pornhub, the free side? Can I put a 3-minute clip on Pornhub, or can I not put any of it on Pornhub? So those are things that you really need to discuss and no pun intended, flesh out prior to the scene being shot.
So how specific do you get with stuff like that? Do you like spell it out like you can't post it to Pornhub, X videos, X hamster, or do you go no tube sites?
It could be very. I mean, listen. It could be you can post it to Pornhub, but in a clip no longer than 3 minutes.
But what do you normally?
You can post it to X videos.
What do you normally recommend as an attorney in those situations?
This isn't a recommend situation. This is a marketing and sales situation. I just write down what people want me to write down, and I use the language that needs to be used to make sure that it would be legally upheld. I personally think that if you do a content share, you should own all of it to do whatever you want with it. They should own all of it to do whatever they want with it, and there shouldn't be any restrictions, because who's really going to police these restrictions? If you do a content share, it's my content. I should be able to do what I want. If I wanted to give it away, I should be able to give it away. If I wanted to sell it, I could sell it. If I wanted to put it on OnlyFans, why are you restricting me? But a lot of people like to restrict the usage of their content. And so you really have to think about these things, just and like I said, just saying no Pornhub isn't specific enough, because I would say, well, okay, you don't want me to give away the scene for free on Pornhub, but I would like to create like a 3 or 4 minute trailer to put up on Pornhub to drive people to my website to join my website. And now by you just saying no Pornhub, I can't even use it there for all of that traffic.
Now the question, would you recommend in the modern era putting in a clause that people cannot redistribute the likeness to feed into an AI algorithm, shit like that?
That could be something else. But you're not really going to have that choice. That's far beyond your choice. So what's happening now with AI is there was just a lawsuit filed on the behalf of artists. So the first AI lawsuit was filed on the behalf of Getty Images, I think, or one of the big
it was Getty.
Shutterstock Images.
Getty was going after motherfuckers.
Yeah, and Getty doesn't really want money. They've even said that what they want are licensing abilities. They want to force the AI company to pay royalties, because that's what they do. They collect money. So they're not trying to shut down AI. They're trying to say, pay us. Where there was just a recent case filed for artists that are saying, no. These are right to publicity cases. This is not just copyright. You're using our images to create people who look like us, and that's going to put us out of business. You can't do that. And it was funny because I tweeted several weeks ago a picture from one of the AI generators that looked a lot like Tara Patrick. I didn't say it looked like Tara Patrick. I didn't put it out there but a lot of people picked up on it and was like, that's Tara Patrick. And that's the problem, is that these AI generators are not just creating images. They're using copyright images, and they're using the right to publicity rights that people have to create those images. You can't create something that looks like Tara Patrick and put it out there for free, when otherwise you'd have to pay Tara Patrick.
But in those situations with the content trade, where I do have the rights to these images, if I were to feed them into one of the art algorithms and then make art from the images I do have rights to, what happens there if it's not specifically spelled out in the model release to not have it?
Well, what kind of art are you talking about? Are you talking about artsy-fartsy, kind of like I want to hang it in a gallery and this is kind of cool art? Or are you talking about, I'm going to use your image to now create a 3D version of you, which I'm going to make other porn out of?
Either or.
Well, the artsy-fartsy stuff, I think you're fine on. I think now, and I've had a lot of people say this to me as well, like, oh, I've got model releases from some of the biggest girls in the industry or the biggest guys in the industry. I'm just going to create, AI versions of them, and I never have to hire. It's not going to work that way. It's just simply not going to work that way. That's not something that people in the industry have to be worried about. They have to be worried about where they're signing contracts where it talks about AI and it talks about avatars and it talks about modeling. And there are companies out there now that are having people in the industry sign those types of contracts. Oh. And go ahead.
Jessica Ryan very publicly tweeted about having to walk off a set where she was just supposed to be doing nude modeling. And when she read a release, it gave them in perpetuity subcontracting rights to her likeness, her voice, and she's... Well,
but that's the whole thing, though. I mean, it depends what it really says. Well, you need those rights.
Her lawyer said, walk the fuck away.
Well, lawyers are always going to say that. Okay. Lawyers are always going to say that. Because that's the easiest default measure. Like, if we say stay on set and then you get fucked, then you're going to blame us. So we're always going to say walk away. But the truth of the matter is every model release has that language in it. Okay.
What she posted was a little extreme, though.
I didn't see what she posted. Did she actually post from the
Yeah, she
from the
actually
model
posted
release?
screenshots from the release. And
Yeah, I would need to see it.
but also it was
It
supposed to be a nude like still shoot, not even like full video. Like, why the hell
well,
are you
then they
citing
may have been capturing. Then they may have been capturing. They may have been doing 3D image capture on her. Which, if they were doing 3D image capture on her, then that yeah, they're creating avatars. They're not doing nude modeling. They're doing imaging. And if they're doing imaging, and you're having and see, this is part of the problem too. So right now where we are with 3D work is you'll stand in front of like a 360-degree camera bank. Yeah, that's not nude modeling. That's 3D imaging, and they're trying to take rights to your avatar. Now, I know of software that you can take a 2D image from the front and a 2D image from the back and create a 3D avatar. It's not as good as 3D imaging, but they can do that now. But it still comes down to, a situation where what's contemplated by the release. Ultimately, you have people who decide these things until ChatGPT becomes judges and machines are doing, court cases. You still have contract interpretation by lawyers and by judges. And of course, every company is going to be like, we own you. We have all of the rights. But really, when you sign that release, what you were signing that release for and what the implications of that release was so that that scene that you shot could be distributed and also altered. But it doesn't mean that it could be changed and turned into an avatar and we could just create movies with you in it and never have to pay you again.
So, but how much can it be fundamentally altered before it's a violation of the contract?
That's a question for the judges.
Who probably don't understand the technology.
Listen, going back years and years and years, there were cases where you had porn star. Remember the days of porn magazines?
They still exist.
Well, but when people used to buy them. And in the back, they used to have the 800 numbers.
Yeah.
And what would happen is your favorite female porn star would be in some ad, and somebody would put a penis on her and turn her into a transsexual. Because when I got into the industry 20 years ago, I would get those phone calls like, I'd be like, you signed a release on that they can alter the picture. That's perfectly legal.
So, wow. But couldn't they sue them for emotional distress or some shit at that point?
No, you signed the release. You kind of signed away your rights for that. What emotional distress about having do you have emotional distress about having a penis?
I would have emotional distress about not having one.
Exactly.
Hi, Nolena. What's going on? Welcome. But I'm sure there are other people that would be emotionally distressed by having one.
I don't know. I know I have mine, and I'm pretty happy with mine, but that's all. I can't talk for anybody else. But the point is that taking somebody's picture and turning it into an avatar is just a little too much. That goes beyond the scope of the model release.
But if adding a penis doesn't, and turning them in an avatar does, how? What makes that decision besides, being in poor taste to try to replace people as an avatar?
Well, because it's a matter of degree. What are you doing with the avatar? Are you making movies? Are you doing something that creates other revenue? Are you
saying putting a penis on someone doesn't generate new revenue?
It could generate new revenue, yes, but you've signed a model release.
Well, if I sign a model release,
ability, it's just it goes too far. Listen, these are all unexplored areas of law. Okay, so the whole ChatGPT AI stuff is still in the courts now. My personal opinion is that when judges see that, they're going to come down on the side of the artist. Because otherwise, what you do is you create a public policy situation where anybody who's ever shot Harrison Ford can now make a Harrison Ford movie. and they can sell the rights to Harrison Ford to somebody else, and they can make a Harrison Ford movie.
But isn't Disney already doing that with people like Carrie Fisher and other dead actors?
They're paying their
estates, or
estates. Yeah, they're paying their estates. Yeah, there's a special law in California for dead actors that protects them.
Okay, but what's the stop? So there's a law in the book just for dead actors, but if you did that with a live actor, what's the recourse?
Well, that's what you would argue. That's the same argument that you would make. That wasn't contemplated by the contract. You know, it's outside the scope of the contract. It's against public policy. There's a lot of arguments you can make.
So what you're saying is, if you want to not be used as an avatar, kill yourself, and then your estate will be protected.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Told you I was going to try to get you this part.
What I'm saying is that
also don't do that. Oh God, I just said that on YouTube. Fuck.
And now you just said that too. If you're just using model releases for the intended purpose of the model release, you're fine. If you try to go far beyond the model release, then yeah, you'll be met with litigation, and you're probably going to lose if you're trying to turn somebody's image into an avatar that you can create movies out of and you can sell, for them for media, influencer, PR campaigns, ads, all of that stuff.
But what if they just put it in the release and then a performer unknowingly, uneducatedly signs it?
That's a problem. That's a problem. That's why, performers have to have these discussions when it comes to model releases. Personally, I would absolutely love if there was a situation where performers got together, and I don't know why APAG doesn't do this. I don't know why a lot of the performer groups don't do this. Is that they come up with a performer approved model release that it gives the necessary rights to the production company or studio, but also make sure it protects the performer. And the performer walks on set and says, here's the only release I'll sign. Don't give me your release. I'm not going to sign it. I don't want to be bothered with it. This way, it saves them the trouble of having to go through this hassle. It also saves them the hassle of having to call up a lawyer like Jessica Ryan did and say, hey, this is what I'm willing to sign. If you try to give me something else, I'm not going to sign it. This is approved by the, performers committee, by the performers union or whatever it is, and this is what I'll sign. And if the company says no, then you say, okay, well, I'm not going to work for you because I know you're a ripoff artist. You're trying to get something over on me.
But what's to stop an individual performer from altering that contract and being like, yeah, here's the standard contract, and then getting one over on a production company?
Well, because the production company would also have a copy of it.
Well, you're assuming that the PA who is generally signing a lot of the 2257 contracts with the performers actually understand the law well enough.
Well, again, that's something that you can do beforehand. That's a discussion that you can have with your production company beforehand. And there's actually, if it's a Word document, you can do an overlay and compare and contrast. So nobody could ever add language in without you knowing it.
Assuming you're doing this,
they can even send it to. Yeah, you can do it digitally. Exactly. So it's something that you can agree to and sign digitally prior to you even getting the set. So that's not an issue.
For sure. I'm just, there have been instances in the history of this industry of performers forging documents too.
Oh yeah, dude, that happens a lot. People are forging signatures all the time in this industry. So, and there's case law on that as well. You can go to jail for forging a model release. It is a crime.
As it should be.
Well, technically it's not a crime, but what's going to end up happening is if you forged it, they're going to ask you that question in a deposition. And if you go, yeah, I forged it, then the case gets thrown out. If you go, no, I didn't forge it, and they prove that you did, now you're lying under oath. That's why you go to jail. Not the actual forgery, but the actual deposition testimony, your trial testimony.
Why? Wouldn't that be fraud to forge someone's signature on a contract?
Well, you can allege for fraud, but fraud's difficult to prove. But that would be perjury. fraud's not a crime. Perjury is a crime. Fraud's a civil issue. Perjury is a criminal issue.
Oh, I thought fraud was a criminal issue also. Once again.
Well, it could be. I mean, if you're trying to defraud your bank, yes. But if you're trying to defraud your next door neighbor, not necessarily. It depends what you're doing.
So what does it take for me to set myself up as a bank so when people try to defraud me, it's a crime?
Would you shut up? I'm here to talk model releases. You're talking about how do I be a bank?
Hey, I said there's going to be some weird legal advice coming out of this.
Yes, that goes too far. So back to the model releases. So what you have to do, you could be a sperm bank.
I cannot. I got a vasectomy.
No. You missed it.
I was just thinking you were implying that
you're not doing the pot.
I thought you were just implying that I would be storing it all in me. I'm like, no.
And so with model releases, you got to have those conversations beforehand. You got to have all of those conversations for the performers. Where is it going to be distributed? How is it going to be distributed? What can I do with it? What can I do with it? Can I resell it? Can I give it to Pornhub? Can I put it as clips on Pornhub? Can I chop it up and put it on? All of that needs to be put into the model release. And here's the other thing that people have to be very cognizant of that I don't think they're really, and that's the other thing about the packet that I sell, is that it's Visa and MasterCard compliant. Okay. One of the big issues with Visa and MasterCard was not only Pornhub or X videos, but it was also the Girls Do Porn case out of San Diego. Okay. So with the Girls Do Porn case, a big reason why those guys ended up going to jail was because of the fact that they were not honest with the models about where the content was going to be distributed. And in my model release, it's very clear, like, this is going to be distributed on the internet. It's going to be going worldwide. Anybody could see it. And not only that, but there's a high likelihood that it's going to be copied and shared across the internet. Because that was the other thing, too. I got a lot of calls from women who had worked for Girls Do Porn asking me if I could take down their content. They would call me up and be like, hey, I did a scene for this company out of San Diego, Girls Do Porn, and now I regret it and I want to take my scene down. And I'd be like, well, okay, it's one thing to take it down from the company who shot it. It's another thing to take it off the internet. You want it off the internet? And they're like, yeah, I really need it off the internet. And I go, it's not going to be possible. Like, it's everywhere. It's all on tube sites. It's, like you just, and what they ended up happening, and it's still happening, because I've got clients where people will post that content still, is that by going to trial and by winning their trial, they got the copyrights to their content, but now they have to spend a lifetime policing it. They have to spend a lifetime of sending out DMCAs on it. So that's what a lot of people don't understand when they shoot, especially if they're amateurs. If they're doing content creation and they're not professional porn actors or porn models, or they don't realize that the internet's forever and someone's going to steal all of their content.
This is why my dick's not on the internet.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's a website right now, and I don't think any of the OnlyFans girls know about it. Okay. I've never heard a single content creator, and it's all women. It's no guys. It's all women. I've never heard a single one of them bring it up to me. But literally, they have all of the content from the top 21,000 content creators on OnlyFans. All of the content from the top 21,000 creators. Whoever your favorite creator is, if she's in the top 21,000, she's on there. And I can go look at everything for free.
Well, and there's
all the pictures, all the videos.
There's whole Discord channels set up to pirating OnlyFans content.
Yeah, but this is actually organized. Like it's like I can search by the girl's name. I can search by, how popular she is. I can go through and I can just click. It's a tube site for OnlyFans, basically, is what it is. How
are they legally operating?
Without it being, they're not legally operating. They're operating out of Russia or someplace.
And OnlyFans, of course, doesn't have the ability or desire to do shit about this.
OnlyFans don't give a shit. What do they care? And that's the other thing that a lot of performers make mistakes on that I've heard before is that, oh, well, I'm paying 20% to OnlyFans, so part of that is for OnlyFans to protect my content. No, OnlyFans doesn't protect your content. You have to protect your content. And not only are the model releases protecting your content, but you better copyright your content. You better watermark your content with a trademarked watermark. I have one of the largest adult OnlyFans creators on the platform, and she has watermarked all of her watermark, or she has trademarked all of her watermarks, which has allowed me to take down a lot of the stuff that other people couldn't get to. And so that's the thing. That's a mistake that a lot of OnlyFans creators don't do, is they don't trademark their watermarks. And by doing so, it gives people an opportunity to steal their content, even if they're outside the country.
Question: what happens if you just watermark it without trademarking the watermark?
It's nothing. That means nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, the power is in the trademark. So what ends up happening is the trademark acts as a designation of origin. Okay? So, for example, Nike shoes. You sell sneakers. You have a sneaker store. And sitting outside your store, somebody abandoned a full tractor trailer of Nike sneakers. So you look around, you go inside, you take out all the sneakers, and you hire a couple of people in the back of your store to take off the swoosh, and they're going to replace the swoosh with your emblem, with your logo. And you're going to put it out for sale. And you're going to sell them for slightly discounted, but you're going to make a ton of money because they're going to be great quality, but they're going to have your logo on it. Well, that's called reverse palming off. And that's illegal. Okay. And you can't designate the quality of somebody else's goods with your logo. So when you upload something to one of the sites and you have your trademarked watermark, and somebody comes along and they take out your watermark or they replace it with their watermark, that is reverse palming off. And unlike DMCA, with DMCA, you have to send a notice. They take it down. 2 days later, it goes back up. They take it down. 2 days later, it goes back up. There is none of that with trademark. Once you send notice to a website that, hey, somebody is violating my trademark, they have to police the website to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Or they're liable?
There is a big case. Oh, yeah. There is a case out of Ninth Circuit in California, out of San Francisco. There was a guy living in San Francisco. He was selling trademarked Louis Vuitton goods, and he was making a fortune. And Louis Vuitton sent like 20 cease and desist letters to the guy and to the guy's web host. Okay. And nobody did anything. The web host was just like, yeah, fuck it. We don't care. So then Louis Vuitton sued both. Well, of course, the guy who was like a fly-by-night guy, he disappeared. He wasn't to be found. But the web host was there. And the court returned a verdict for Louis Vuitton for $15 million for trademark violations. And because they said that the website was a contributory trademark infringer, because all they had to do was press a button and the website would have been gone. They could have taken down the website and prevented all of the problems by just taking him offline. And by failure to do so, they contributed to the damages suffered by Louis Vuitton. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. If you have a video and you have that watermarked, and that watermark is trademarked, and Pornhub or whatever company doesn't take it down, well, they're part of the problem now. And I could tell you that if there is somebody who is in the billing world, CC Bill, Epic, or anybody in that realm that is allowing that content, that stolen content, to be monetized, as soon as I send that letter, boom, it's gone. Because the billing company comes back and tells the person, like, you take that content down or we stop your billing, all of it entirely. It's a very powerful way to stop piracy.
Now,
that very few people that use in this industry.
Now the question is, if, say we do a content trade, We both get copies of it.
Yeah.
And I put my trademark watermark on my version of it.
Yeah.
What's to stop someone from being like, oh, no, you can't use that anymore in the future because I have my trademark watermark on it. Just being completely a piece of shit.
You mean within the group that have traded the content?
Yeah.
Never had that situation come up. I would probably, that's an interesting question because if you put your trademark watermark on it, would you be able to prevent somebody else from using it? Technically, yes, but that other person would have the 2257 and they would have the model releases, so they would have rights to it independent of you.
Well, yeah, legally, yes, but like in real world practice, how much of a fucking shit show does that become?
Not really, because what would happen is, let's say you did that and you were a dick and you hired a lawyer and you sent a letter to CC Bill and you told CC Bill, like, this person's has been violating my trademark. And that person shows up and says, well, wait a minute, I've got a model release. I've got 2257. I've got their signature. CC Bill's going to look at you and go, we're putting it back up.
But is CC Bill going to actually take the time to consult with the other party, or are they just going to take it down?
No, absolutely. They're going to consult with the other party. Yeah, I had this happen to a client. That's why I know this so well. CC Bill literally said, hey, if you can't prove this is yours, then we're going to take you down. If you can't prove it's yours, then it's fine. So, yeah, CC Bill will take the time to talk to somebody. They're not going to give you a lot of time. It's not like they're going to give you 7 days to get back to them. But they'll contact you and be like, hey, we've got a report that your content is violating something. So if you get back to them quickly and you go, oh, here's my model release, here's a 2257, this is a guy I did a content trade with, and he's trying to dick me over, CC Bill will be like, oh, okay, well, you've got rights to it.
So what if it's...
You're not violating his trademark.
But what if it's on a, like, Pornhub Premium? Does CC Bill reach out to the creator individually, or did they reach out to Pornhub, who then has to reach out to the creator?
Well, you'd probably reach out. The person wouldn't reach out to CC Bill. They'd reach out to Pornhub.
Right. Well, I'm saying, so the person who owns the trademark reaches out to Pornhub and says, take this shit down. This is my trademark. This is mine. At that point, what happens? Like, does Pornhub...
Well, that's a question. That's a question for Pornhub. I don't know.
Well, I didn't know if you had any previous experience in this situation, or...
No. I've never had somebody pull that bullshit. I've never had and if somebody pulled that bullshit, I wouldn't represent them. If somebody called me up and was like, hey, I did a content trade with somebody, I put a watermark on mine and I want to stop them from using the content, I'd be like, well, yeah, but fuck you. That's fundamentally unfair.
I'm not saying that...
I wouldn't even represent them.
But you could be on the defensive side of it, like, but I represent the person who has a valid model release. And
yeah, and what I would tell Pornhub, what I would tell CC Bill, what I would tell X Videos is like, here's the model releases, here's the 2257 documents. We obviously have rights to the content. So whatever they're claiming is false.
Would you advocate, as an attorney, that a third party stores people's records so it's not on the content creator to have to go try through those records and produce them themselves?
What do you mean by a third party?
Well, because I know there are some attorneys have offered in the past to be the steward of records for people's 2257, stuff like that. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's not, but that doesn't resolve issues like this.
Well, it does if you could produce the 2257 quickly, and the performer may not because their record keeping may be shit.
Well, I mean, listen, that's a different issue. I mean, I would always recommend that if you're not somebody who is, OCD when it comes to records, that, yeah, you should probably have somebody else keep your 2257 records. But if you're a normal human being and you have the skills to organize records, and keep them yourself, whether it's in paper form or electronic form or something like that.
Well, and speaking of electronic form, what constitutes a proper chain of custody of a electronic copy?
That really doesn't come up.
Oh, sorry.
And you got to remember, there's only been one. There's only been one 2257 case in the history of 2257. and that's Joe Francis. He's the only person who's ever been convicted of a 2257 violation. That's it. One.
That doesn't mean that won't change in the future, though, right?
Well, but here's the thing, though. They now need a search warrant in order to get to your 2257 records.
Oh, okay.
And to get a search warrant, they have to have probable cause, and they're going to be more worried about other stuff than just your 2257 chain of custody. So, for instance, there was a case several years ago, could be 10 years by now. I don't know. I lost track. But one of the Florida companies shot an underage girl.
Ooh.
She was beautiful, underage, black, light-skinned girl, huge boobs. If you looked at her, you would think that she was 20, 25 years old. There was nothing about this girl that looked underage at all. But from my understanding is she got a copy of a cousin's ID or birth certificate, went and got a real driver's license. Okay. So this company in Florida, I forgot if it was Bang or who it was, but they did everything they could to make sure that the person on their set was legal, including they had one of those nightclub scanners where they would run the ID through the scanner to see if it was real, and it came back real. I mean, like, they did everything you could to make sure that they weren't having any underage people on their set. And there is no way they could have known. You couldn't have looked at this girl and thought she was underage. Her ID scanned because it was produced. It was done by the Department of Florida, by DMV in Florida, and nobody ever went to jail over that because they had done everything they could. And so, but they still got sued for underage porn. But nobody really, the chain of custody of the 2257 really didn't matter. That's not something that really comes into it that often.
Just curious. And obviously, producers, you got to check people's rings.
Rings?
Like trees.
Like trees.
Duh. That's how you really tell how old people are.
It's not. But honestly, it's not something we really see that often.
Well,
I mean, you know,
America's a very changing landscape and seems to, in some respects, getting wildly more conservative by the moment. So I would, in my opinion, I would definitely cross every T and dot every I that I possibly fucking could.
Oh, of course. But what I'm saying is, generally, as an industry, we have done a terrific job in keeping anybody underage away from the industry. Now, we may play with that line, and we may dress up 18 and 19-year-old girls to look underage, but they're 18 and 19 years old, and that's legal.
Creepy, but legal.
Creepy, but legal, yes. But yeah, I mean, that's legal. That's completely legal. And that's what our that's what our enemies hate about us, is that it's legal, but they just want to bring out the creepiness side of it. So what about model releases? Let's see. What can I wrap up with?
Well.
Well,
Make
sure you're using the right model. Go ahead.
Yes. Definitely make sure you're using the right model. I agree.
Model release. Make sure that if you're doing a share, you're using a shared release. If you're doing a trade, use a trade release. If you're doing a paid, use a paid release. Make sure that you are talking about, when you're doing shares, make sure you're talking about what the restrictions on the content are prior to shooting anything, and having that drafted into the share release by a lawyer. Don't try to handwrite it in and try to figure it out yourself, because it's not going to be pretty. If you have to enforce somebody violating the release, let's say you do come to an agreement where it's no free porn whatsoever, like no one's supposed to, and then somebody's putting it out, then what I would suggest is that you contact a lawyer and you have them write a letter to wherever the scene is being distributed, and they send over a copy of the model release to say, hey, look at the model release. They're not supposed to be doing this. They're violating the model release. They don't have the rights to distribute it on your platform. And that's how I would handle that.
Now,
and then, yeah, go ahead.
How long do these things take to resolve usually, if you have an issue?
Pretty quickly. Very quickly. very, very quickly. Because, again, CC Bill and Epic don't want to be caught up in this, or nor does any of the other billing companies want to be caught up in these issues. And so they'll just stop processing on a particular site if there's an issue. Now, they may not, it may be different for OnlyFans. I'm talking about if you had your own site.
Right. But stuff like for the tube sites, shit like that, how long would that take? Does that take to resolve?
Again, and I'm not trying to self-promote, but there is a benefit to having a lawyer. I mean, I had a client contact me. Xvideos has a policy, and some of the models are going to learn this very difficult. And they're going to learn this in a very nasty way. Is that they try to restrict you from removing more than 3 videos a day from their platform, even if you're DMCAing the videos.
How's that legal?
They will only handle. It's not, but go ahead and sue them over it. So what they're going to do is they're going to remove your content very slowly, 3 videos a day, and which basically says we're never going to remove your content, because as soon as we remove the 3 videos today, we're going to upload 3 more videos that we just removed tomorrow, and that's their policy according to their TOS. And you agreed on it when you signed up for a model program or from a share program or an ad revenue program. So you're kind of fucked.
But what if you didn't and someone else is just violating your copyright?
They're still going to say 3 videos a day. That's all that they will handle. But again, this is where the trademark comes in. Okay. This is where the trademarked watermark comes in, because I had a client that had like 900 and some videos up on Xvideos that were pirated. And I sent the letter, and they sent me back this, we'll take down 3 a day bullshit. And I sent back to them, and I said, listen, if you don't take the videos down, I'm going to go to your processor right now, and I'm going to have them cut off your processing. And like that, the videos were down. Like that. Like they all came down all at once, because they ain't going to fuck around. And I happen to know who the lawyer is for Xvideo, so that made it easy too.
Yeah, like, hey, stop being a dick.
Well, that's the thing. The first letter went to Xvideos, and I got back their customer support bullshit that said, hey, we'll remove 3 videos. And then I went to the lawyer and go, hey, you don't want to tell your client to do this, because I'm going to go after them. And he, just like that, it came down.
Speaking of...
So that's the benefit of...
go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, speaking of...
No, I'm saying that's the benefit of having a lawyer sometimes write those letters. People think piracy prevention and all of those, that's not the same. Hiring a DMCA takedown company is not the same as having an attorney. Half of the people that are doing the DMCA takedown stuff are not attorneys. Even though they're claiming to be attorneys, they're not attorneys.
Dude, is there an attorney involved in that and all, or they just...
I sometimes doubt it. I really do. I think they're the biggest scam happening right now in porn when it comes to models. They're just scamming models left and right. I won't mention any specific companies. But what models and what content creators do not realize is that they have to be careful when it comes to submitting DMCA takedown requests. A lot of my clients, a lot of affiliates are getting very upset with the content creators, because what's ends up happening is that they're trying to get all of their content removed from sites, because it ups the value of the content on their OnlyFans or ups the value of the content on their page. Well, I get it. I get why you would do it. But if you shot a scene for somebody and you were paid for that scene, and now 3 years later you're submitting a DMCA takedown notice on a scene that you don't own, that is filing a false DMCA, which means that the person that you filed it against can sue you. And so I know there's a lot of affiliates and a lot of people who are thinking that they're going to start suing models over this. I mean, if you're an affiliate program and you have 100 blogs, and you have tube sites, and you have all of this stuff, and you're using the content with an agreement with the program, and you're putting out all of this content every day, and every day you're getting hit by like 20 model DMCA takedowns, you're getting really frustrated because it's not their content. It's the content that belongs to the company that they shot for.
What a shit show.
It is a huge shit show. A huge shit show. I've had to, on several occasions, write to the DMCA takedown services and say, listen, if you don't stop this, we're going to sue you and we're going to sue your client. You're going to sue the model. So you better whitelist us. My client is an actual affiliate. They're not a piracy site. They're not some kind of scumbag. They only get their content as an affiliate through the programs. It's licensed. They have the right to use it. And the model you're representing keeps knocking it down. And they're wasting their time.
Now, do you think if people start getting litigious with models, it's going to discourage models from wanting to shoot with particular sites, companies?
Sure, it will. But eventually, OnlyFans has had its day. And I think OnlyFans is on the decline now. From everything that I'm hearing about OnlyFans is that no one's making the money that they used to make during the pandemic. Those numbers are gone. If they're not half of what you used to make, they're less than half of what you used to make. And so therefore, models cannot, there will always be the top tier, top of the top that can just live off of OnlyFans. But the people who are not in the top 1%, that they may not be able to live off of OnlyFans anymore the way they used to just live off of OnlyFans. And they may have to go back to shoot for companies. So you got to be careful out there.
Well, definitely.
That's what I'm hearing.
Well, I had a guest on not too long ago who said, like, the average OnlyFans creator makes $160 a month.
Yeah, but we're not talking about those particular people. We're talking about the porn stars that are shooting for companies.
I mean, yes, your average porn star is probably not making $160 a month, but your average porn star may not be making thousands.
Well, she's probably making thousands, but during the pandemic, she may have been making 10 or 20,000, and now she may be making 8,000, 5,000, and so that's a big drop off in pay, and so he or she may want to go back to work and start shooting for companies.
Well, my 2 cents has always been that even if they were killing it on OnlyFans, that shoot a scene or two for a major company, because you really, in a lot of cases, can't beat MindGeek's marketing arm. Hell, even if you're not doing the scene for
it depends how big. I mean, if you're Riley Reid, do you really need to shoot another scene for people to know that you're out there? No.
Well, that's the 1% of the 1% right there.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you're
but if you're
upper
not
mid,
then you need to shoot. You should shoot. You should absolutely shoot, because otherwise people are going to forget who you are. You're right. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah. People like Riley or Abella are also doing like large mainstream YouTube platforms all the time for their marketing. Abella has been on Ask the Internet on a couple different occasions, which gets hundreds of thousands, if not millions of views on a YouTube video. So yeah, she does not, if she doesn't want to, she doesn't have to go shoot a mainstream scene for the marketing aspect of it. She's got brand awareness.
Yeah, she has brand awareness. But if you don't have brand awareness, may have to go back to work. Maybe time to shoot scenes again.
I'm sorry, Michael. I'm still keeping my dick off the internet.
You know what? So have I. Well,
that's pretty impressive, seeing as you were married to a performer.
Mm-hmm. Well, I learned how to use a camera. I tell people that when you're married to a porn star, either you learn one thing or the other. Either you learn how to fuck on camera or you learn how to hold a camera. And I learned how to hold a camera. So I took a lot of pictures and a lot of videos.
Well, in these days, some people are forced to learn both.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about like if you're married to somebody.
Wow.
Either you're going to perform or you're going to like be a photographer.
Well, I'm saying
And so I
people
ended
that
up
are married
becoming.
to...
Yeah. Listen, I was married to her for 13 years. I dated a bunch of porn stars. I like sex workers. I do. I really do. I love people in the industry. I love the guys. I love the girls. I think it's the greatest industry on the planet. And that's why I'm so lucky to work in it. And, the people in it are just they're real. I worked in mainstream. Can I tell you how many times I heard the expression, "Do you know who I work for?" I heard that so often. It was ridiculous. Do you know who I work for? Like, I don't give a fuck who you work for. And you don't get that in porn. You don't get the, do you know who I am? Do you know who I work for? Do you know who my boss is? Do you know who I know? That just doesn't exist over here.
You get a little sometimes.
Really?
It's few and far between, but I definitely was out on the road with a girl, and like, she wasn't working the club that we were at. We were hanging out with another feature. Mm-hmm. And I definitely heard her say to someone, like, just fucking Google me.
Well, but that may be different, though. That's different than saying, do you know who I am? Just Google me. I've said that before to people, like, just not in a nasty way. Just
the tone of it definitely came across of, don't you know who I am?
Oh, okay. Well, hey, listen. Sometimes you got to be a little arrogant if you're out on a stage dancing and nobody knows who you are.
Well, she wasn't dancing. As I said, we were hanging out with the feature.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is like somebody's assistant or intern. Like their intern is telling me they're like 20 years old and I'm 40 years old, and they're looking at me like, "Do you know who I work for?" I'm like, I've been a lawyer longer than you've been alive. What are you talking about? Do I know who you work for? That I don't get in porn.
No, that's
That's
true.
why I love porn. Yeah.
But then again, even for people who work for people, I feel like we are all a giant sea of independent contractors.
Yeah. Yeah. Just don't shove up my ass who you work for. That's all. I don't care.
Fair enough. Unless you work for me. If you work for me, fucking shove it right up Fattorossi's ass.
I would hate that. If somebody did that and who worked for me and they're like, "Do you know who I work for?" I'd be like, "Shut the fuck up. You no longer work for me."
Oh, no.
That's who you don't work for.
Oh, no. It's just to you. Don't do it to anyone else. Just to Michael.
All right.
Barge into places at AVN and conventions and be like, "Don't you know who I am? Don't you know who I work for?" Just to Michael's seminars. That's it.
Did you go to the show this year? You went to the show, right?
At AVN?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember you told Brian that I could bring alcohol into the media room, or that it was his call.
Oh yeah. You could. Yeah, I remember that. What did you think about the show? Did you like it? Did you like Resorts World?
And it was a mixed bag. It was definitely a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Like,
What?
I liked that we had a lot more space in the fucking Hard Rock.
Yeah.
The Hard Rock was always my vibe. I always liked the Hard Rock as a casino.
I know. I like the Hard Rock. I did. I really did. I was one of those people that are like, this is where porn belongs.
Exactly. It had the right level of scumminess to it.
Exactly. And the smokiness and like rock and roll and porn, they go together. Like it was just too small. That was the problem.
Yeah, no, I did not enjoy
it was just
being
not big enough.
Fucking shoulder to shoulder with people trying to walk the floor at the Hard Rock. Like if you could have given us the same amount of space at the Hard Rock as we had at Resorts World, awesome. I also enjoyed how incompetent the security was at Resorts World because I was able to just smuggle alcohol in freely. Not that the Hard Rock staff was ever able to stop me either, but I guess you weren't privy to that part of the conversation because after you pushed it back on the media staff about me bringing alcohol in, they went, "Well, if you can get it in." I'm like, "All right, I'll be back in a minute."
Yeah, I'm a lawyer. I'm not security. I don't work security.
Yeah, thankfully, I have a long history in security, so I know exactly how poor they are at their jobs.
I know you do. Exactly. You actually defended, or you actually protected Brinks trucks. And they kind of do the same with casinos, I guess. It's about the same.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Done that, done the feature gigs. I've done, security. I've done venue security. And I know how generally piss poor people employed in that line of work are at their jobs.
Yeah, it's true.
Because it's just one of those things where, oh, hey, people view security in a lot of cases like fucking insurance. They want to pay the minimum amount to just have coverage.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I could definitely see that.
It's not until you get to...
Nobody wants to pay for insurance.
Exactly. And until you get to very high tier, it's like the gap in between of levels of security are wild. It's like you get people that are barely making lower minimum wage that should not be making any critical fucking decisions. And then you get people that are ex-special forces that are doing executive protection on actual people.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much in between.
Yeah.
That reminds me when we
All right,
used to,
sir.
Well, real quick. When we used to have AVN during the SHOT Show, when we were all like at the Hard Rock and like the SHOT Show, people, I definitely had like some ex-special forces contractors come up to me and like approach me because I was hanging out at Circle Bar. But force of habit, I'm scanning the room, I'm doing my thing. And like, I had some guys like, oh, you're obviously the security. So how do I get into doing this? I'm like, bro, you are ex-special forces. No one here can afford you. Like, you're coming from SHOT and you're ex-special forces that does executive protect. Nobody here has that kind of money.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's not 90s Vivid money for fucking anybody.
They couldn't even afford it back then.
They just had the illusion of it.
Yeah, probably. I mean, Vivid probably, Vivid never made as much money as the big sites are making. Nobody makes as much money as OnlyFans. Nobody makes as much money as some of the campsites. They dwarf what those companies made. Dwarf.
They have so much more content coming in than Vivid ever could have possibly produced in those days.
Well, it's just a different industry. When you say OnlyFans, you're talking about $2 billion a year. Vivid never made $2 billion a year.
How much content generates that $2 billion?
Oh, I have no idea. A lot.
Probably there is more content created for OnlyFans. This is completely me guessing. I have no numbers to back this up. But I would guess that there are more content made in 6 months on OnlyFans than there was in the history of Vivid existing.
Sure. Absolutely. There's 3 million content creators, of course.
Right.
There's probably more content in 2 days made than the entire history of Vivid.
So, obviously, they should be making a lot more fucking money.
Yeah. So.
But before we get you out of here, Michael, anything else going on? Anything else you want to report to the audience since you've last been on?
Well, there's some big things coming, but I can't talk about it yet.
Cool.
Some huge things coming. Huge changes.
For you or for the industry? Or
for the industry. For the industry.
Finally going to show your dick on film?
No, not that. Oh my God. I made it through this long without doing it. I could make it another 20 years without doing it. I don't know. Would I ever do that? For $2,000, I may. Somebody wanted to offer me $2,000, I may do it. I may, yeah. Even with China, I'd probably do it. $2,000.
Yeah.
You're a better man than me.
I don't. It was just one of those things where, like, it was just.
You may have been the highest paid male porn star in the history of the industry at $2,000. You realize that?
I do realize that, and also it was a very awkward.
You could have been. You could have had like bragging rights.
It was also.
Like, I'm the highest paid male porn star ever.
Also, it was a very awkward conversation having to explain to a bunch of A-list, the people that hung in those circles at those parties.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Like, some people took very big offense to me being like, no, I'm cool. I don't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess they felt like I was looking down my nose at them. I'm like,
yeah.
No, that's not.
I can see that.
That's not the case at all. It's just, I don't think I'm built for this. I also don't want to get paid $2,000 to fail.
Yeah, $2,000. Who cares?
Well, because I don't know if I would have gotten the money if I failed.
Oh, well, you had to work that out. See, again, these are discussions to have before the model release is signed. See, the perfect example. There should have been a clause in that model release that whether you succeed or fail, you still get paid the $2,000. And that's my point, ladies and gentlemen, right there. You have to have these discussions before the scene is shot.
Yeah, but also,
if they would have paid you whether you failed, would you have done the scene?
Probably not, because the last thing I want is fucking film of my limp dick on the internet.
What happens if they didn't film your penis? Would you have done the scene?
I don't know. I honestly do not know, but it was just a nope. at the time, it was just a. It was just a nope, and it's a weird situation. Like, much like you at this point, because I occasionally do get performers who are like, "Oh, I'd love to, have you on my OnlyFans for whatever the novelty is of trying to bang me on their OnlyFans is."
Yeah. No one says that to me. I'm 53. That stopped when I was like 43.
Oh, I got only one more year.
I don't have to worry about that anymore.
I only have one more year of this. Oh shit! But
nobody's like, I want my grandpa on my OnlyFans. It doesn't work.
Oh, I will put money out there that someone would be willing to proposition you for their OnlyFans. I'll put money.
Dude, I have not been propositioned in the longest time. When I first got a part of this industry, when I was 33, I got propositioned so much. Like, can we do a trade for my trademark? And I'm like, no, I can't pay my rent with your trade. You got to pay me. And so that all dried up about 10 years ago. So there's nobody propositioning me to be on their OnlyFans page. Nobody's got a grandpa site that they're like shooting.
Well, I'll let you know when I launch one. We'll try to get you that $2,000.
I'm in. Let me know.
The mouse says he thinks you're too straight for his page.
Oh yes, I'm too straight for that. Yes. I love my gay clients. I love my gay friends. But there is just no part of me that is gay. There's just not. I respect it. I love it. I'm attorney for a bunch of gay companies, and I get it. I get how somebody could find another man attractive. I just don't.
Michael, but we've discussed this many times at dinner over the years. You don't have to be gay to catch.
Wait, what?
Between the pitcher and the catcher, you don't have to be
pitch.
You definitely.
You mean you don't have to be gay to pitch? You mean? No,
you have to be gay to get it up. You don't have to be gay to receive.
No, that's true.
So 3,000 for that?
Nope. Nope.
You wouldn't even have to do much work. You just have to got to be there.
Nope. I'm one of those guys that are like, don't go anywhere near that area of my body.
Well, I agree with you, mostly because I have digestive issues, but I really don't want to reenact the opening of the Beverly Hillbillies.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not one of those guys that are like, yeah, go ahead. Stick a finger in there. I don't care. No.
Yeah.
That is a one-way street.
If you try to stick a finger in there, I will clench so hard you may lose the finger.
Dude, the worst and the best time I ever had was I had to have a prostate examination. And I had the hottest doctor ever. Like, literally, she was like a 9. And I walked in, and I'm like, come on, you got to be kidding me. Like, this sucks. Like, why couldn't, like, I don't know what's worse. I don't know if it's worse to get, like, a 65-year-old, like, guy that's just going to be like, yeah, I've done this 100 times. Or the really hot, like, 30-year-old brand new doctor. And one time I had a brand new 30-year-old hot, like, female doctor who was going to give me a prostate exam, and I'm just like, ugh. It was fun, and it was torture.
Get her number afterwards?
No.
Uh-huh.
I asked her if she was going to buy me dinner, though. I pulled that line. Like, usually somebody buys me dinner before they do this, but she wasn't, she had no sense of humor, so.
Well, then
I get it.
It's no fun. The mouse...
She's heard that one. She's heard that one 1,000 times, though.
Well, the proper... Well, no, actually, that's probably a crime these days, but the proper response is like, so when do I get to take my turn?
No,
that's a crime. I know. That's a crime. That's a crime. It's funny, but it's a crime.
Whisper in my ear, tell me you love me. So.
The mouse...
All right. My bottle's empty. It's empty.
It's empty.
And I have to go eat dinner. I'm drunk and I have to go eat dinner.
Real quick, we have one comment from the mouse. I feel bottling is more gay than topping.
See, he agrees with me. He agrees with me because I was like, I don't know. I think topping would be easier, but
I don't know. You were the one who pitched at an Exotica dinner about topping. You have to get it up and keep it up for another man. You were the one who brought up that argument.
That's true. I mean, I made a good point. That is a good point. Because I think we were talking about gay for pay at that point.
We were.
Yeah, we were talking about gay for pay, and that's not easy to do. Not that I would know, but I'm just saying that's. You're right. It would be. I don't.
It was your argument. You were right. I regurgitated your
lawyer. I'm a lawyer. I can argue anything. That's what we do. I can argue for it. I can argue against it. I can argue maybe. I don't care. Who's ever paying me? That's how I argue. It doesn't really matter to me.
As long as they're not trying to be a scumbag about trademarks.
My own. Yeah, I have no opinions of my own. I'm a hired gun. You want me to have an opinion? Pay me. I'll have your opinion. That's what people hate about lawyers too. But that's what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to have opinions.
Exactly.
We're supposed to effectively represent our clients to the best of our abilities. And if you have an opinion about something, you can't do that. You have to be neutral. You have to be beige, basically. You have to be beige. You have to be able to argue everything and anything based upon who's ever paying or hiring you to argue their case. So I can make both arguments, whether it's harder to be a top or harder to be a bottom. But I don't know either way. So I would have to call an expert witness. Tell him I'll call him as an expert witness and he can testify.
Unless you got $5,000 from Michael, I think we'll find a price. On that note,
all right, my friend,
we'll get you out of your... Hey, Michael, before you empty that glass,
yes.
Where can they find you on things? Where can they buy those model releases from you?
Okay, so my website has been and will always be adultbizlaw.com. Okay. Not to be confused with one of my competitors who tries to steal my domain names. It's adultbizlaw.com. And then on Twitter, I'm only on Twitter. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on Instagram. It's only Twitter, and it's @pornlaw.
Wait a minute. Who's at Michael Fattorosi on Instagram then?
That's me, but it's not @pornlaw. So I don't use Instagram or Facebook for porn work. I use that for like personal stuff.
Whoops, I've been tagging Instagram this whole time. My bad.
Yeah, that's fine. No, that's fine. It's not a big deal. But I usually only really converse with people and post to Twitter. Twitter is my porn account. Facebook is sort of like my family and friends account. So, and I'm on Instagram, but I don't really use it that much. I just go there just to have it. TikTok I'm not on, and all of the Snapchat I'm not on. So if anybody's pretending to be porn law, it's not me. Come find me on Twitter @pornlaw.
And soon to come, the porn law OnlyFans account. That's what he can't announce. I'm just announcing it for him.
I thought, you know what? When I was still doing the restaurant, I was going to do a @pornlaw cooking OnlyFans account where you could come and see some of my special. Dude, I make a kick-ass Chicago pizza like you've never had before.
I want to try it. As someone from Chicago, I want to try it. But honestly,
Dude, I've had a ton of Chicago expats that come in here and they eat it and they go, "This is just as good as Chicago. This is just as good."
well,
If you go to my website, or if you go to Google and you look at my reviews, that's all they talk about is the Chicago deep dish pizza.
I can't eat reviews, Michael. I can't eat reviews.
I know. Well, get your ass on a plane and then come to Den Haag.
Well, so
You've been to Amsterdam, right?
yeah, food sucked.
Yeah, you love Amsterdam.
Food sucked.
I'm like an hour south of Amsterdam.
So I think you should start an OnlyFans, though, that is you just giving legal advice with two topless girls standing next to you.
Yeah, but I don't live. I live in the Netherlands now.
Oh my God, there's no sex workers.
I know one.
There's no sex workers in the Netherlands?
Not that want to be on OnlyFans. I know one porn star here. That's it. I know one porn star.
Well, when we go to the CAM Awards. Well,
She just got a boob job, though, so that may be good.
yeah, there you go.
Yes, the CAM Awards. Are you coming? Are you going to commit on your show right now to coming to Bucharest May 30th, 31st, and June 1st to the CAM Awards?
I will give a hard maybe. I need to look at what flights cost before I can commit to that.
Well, it's really cheap in Bucharest, though. So
Yeah.
the flight would probably be the most expensive thing.
Well, yeah, I just
They're not on the euro.
neat. I love European countries on the Euro.
And my buddy is hosting the award show. So we're really in.
All right. We'll talk off air about like making arrangements for it, but I'm definitely interested. Like if I can make it happen, I'm totally down.
Oh yeah. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, we'll get
So-
you out of here. But until next week,
Yeah.
drink up, motherfuckers.